Welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. I'm John Karabatsis, and I'll be your host for this edition of the Bowling University Profit Break. Thank you for joining us. Our mission here at the university is to enrich people's lives personally and professionally, and the Profit Break is an opportunity for sharing insights on how to grow revenue, reduce costs, enrich yourself, your team, and your business. If you're joining the Profit Break for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. Give us 15 minutes and you will be on your way to improving your profitability. Well, make no mistake about it, we are in the business of making memories and delivering a great experience to our guests. For those of you looking to take your entertainment up a notch, immersive experiences like virtual reality may be something you're considering. But with so many options available, it can be difficult to navigate the many choices. Our guest today, Danny Gruening, will help provide some clarity by offering his insight and guidance into virtual reality. Danny is the VP of Marketing for Creative Works, where fun meets passion. Many of you probably have seen Danny before, as he's a great proponent of educating our members and is a frequent guest lecturer at Bowling University management schools and national conferences. Before joining Creative Works team, Danny spent some time with Disney, where he learned some of the best customer service training in the world. Currently, he's helping operators all over the country with attractions mix, hiring, and training, as well as operations best practices. Danny, great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate you having me. Anytime I get a chance to hang out with the BPAA team and help educate some operators, I'm all for it.
Great, thank you for that. I know you're really, really busy, so thanks again for that. So let's jump right into it. We're talking about virtual reality. Virtual reality is nothing new. It's been around for years. Okay, what's the state of the industry, and is it something that our members should consider adding to their centers?
So the state of the industry, in one word, I would describe it as exciting. Right. You had mentioned there's a lot of different options, and we'll kind of get in our discussion through some of the different categories and how to understand the landscape and the options available. And there are so many options that it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But the more companies that get into this space and the more the technology advances, the more exciting it becomes for operators, because you get a chance to explore new games, you get a chance to explore new technologies, and find ways to deliver really memorable experiences to guests to be able to keep them in the door longer, spending more money, and having more fun. And so when it comes down to it, yes, I recommend that anybody does the research to start understanding what the VR options are that are on the marketplace and how it can fit within your center and reach your goals. Because what we're noticing is, for a little while, it was, well, should I add VR? And if I do, which VR should I add? And for a lot of operators, it has moved past that and become which ones, how many, because it has been such an impactful piece for so many different bowling proprietors.
So now you mentioned options, which we know that there's a lot of them, and they vary by size, and then operationally the complexity varies as well. Can you give us a sense, kind of break that down for us? What are the differences that are out there?
Sure. So this is going to be painting with a bit of a broad brush, right? The more the more options that become available in the marketplace, the more kind of blurred the lines become between some of these categories. But I have 4 different buckets I generally drop VR into to help understand the kind of experience that you're going to deliver, as well as, you know, how much space it's going to take up, how much you can charge, etc. So starting on the smallest end, you've got arcade. So arcade's going to be something like Virtual Rabbids, something like Fury or SpongeBob SquarePants Dynamic Duo or King Kong Skull Island. These are items that are going to be literally dropped in your arcade area. They can take swipe card payments or anything like that, just like the rest of your arcades. And they're going to be unstaffed attractions that allow guests to go up, play on their own. Much shorter experiences. You're generally going to be in that 1 to 2 minute range for an experience, and you'll have 1 to 2 players that can participate in any of those games. And so that's kind of the small end for footprint starting point. Now, as we go up in size, the next one is going to be what we like to call the hybrid attractions. Now, this is something we call it the hybrid because it's larger than an arcade, so it's not that small, but it's not quite as big or involved as a full-on, larger anchor attraction, right? So the hybrid attractions would be something like a Vex Adventure or a Hologate Arena or Omni, the Omni Arena by Virtuix. Now, these are going to be a little bit larger than the arcade. You're going to be looking up to about 400 square feet in total size for these, and you'll be looking anywhere from 4 to 6 total players that can experience the game at one time. And as far as the price point goes, the price point you can charge is also going to increase. A lot of operators that have these attractions are going to be charging anywhere from the $5 to $10 per play range with a 3 to 5 minute game. Going back and comparing that to something like the arcade attractions, those arcade VR units are going to be charging anywhere from $3 to $6 or $7, just kind of depending. Every market's going to be a little bit different, and every operator is going to be a little bit different. And with the hybrid attractions, a lot of times it's not just I'm going to play this game. They tend to be more of a platform where there are multiple game options that are available for the customers. And so it helps encourage that repeat play. It's not just I'm going to go up and play the one game that's on a Hologate Arena. There are many games, so they may go up and play this one and come back later with friends and play another one or a different one or try to level up their score on an existing one. So there's a lot of different options. The next category is similar in size to the hybrid attractions, but it's motion platform. And so this is where it's going to take the immersion up a level by introducing some sort of a piece of a motion simulation in some way. So an example of this would be the hyperdeck, where on the hyperdeck you have the full floor that tilts and moves as you're playing the game. There's also heat and wind effects, and it adds in new elements and makes it a more immersive experience. Now, the amount of players that can be in there at once is, again, going to be pretty similar to what you're going to find in the hybrid attractions, but you'll be able to end up charging a little bit more per play. So if you have a hybrid VR attraction and you're charging somewhere between $5 and let's say $10 or $11, something that's a motion platform may be something more like $7 to $12, somewhere in that range. Once you get to the point of looking at both hybrid as well as motion platform, this will also be the point where you're introducing staff. These are going to be attractions that require a staff person to operate them. And then when we move up to the next largest scale is what we call free roam. Now, it's called free roam because in all the other options, for the most part, that we've discussed, whether it's the arcade or the hybrid or the motion platform, you're going to be looking at having the headsets tethered where people can move and manipulate and duck around, but they're not going to be moving through space very much. They're going to have a little footprint that they're sticking within, and they're going to have a tether up to computers or something above them to keep them in that place. When you go free roam, it eliminates the need for tethers, and people are able to freely experience and move around an open space, or as some of the new attractions like Limitless VR that are coming on to the marketplace, they're able to move within an existing arena that has props or some sort of pieces and barriers. And so this takes the immersion to a whole new level where now you're not just being immersed in an environment and kind of turning and moving around that way. You're freely moving through a space, and it changes that experience. It also tends to be a longer experience. The free roam attractions could range anywhere from, a 15-minute total experience to something that's 30 or more minutes. And so with that, you're also going to be able to charge a much higher price point because it's a longer experience and you're giving people a lot more than they would have on something like an arcade. And so you're going to be charging, $10 plus, 10, 15, potentially 18, just depending on the marketplace that you're in and the kind of attraction that you're going to be running. And so that's kind of a really high level breakdown of the different categories of VR options that are out on the marketplace.
There's a lot of choices. You mentioned something I want to come back to in a little bit when you talked about staffing. We'll come back to that. But so I've got arcade, I've got hybrid, I've got motion, and I got freeform. Okay, so if I'm looking to get into that, where do I start? How do I determine what the best concept is for my location?
I think the first thing starts with identifying your goals. right? Anytime, whether it's VR or any other attraction that a bowling proprietor or any other entertainment center is considering adding, I first have them step back and say, well, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? Because with any attraction, VR or not, there's different factors that are going to influence the decision. It's going to be, what are you trying to do? Maybe you want to increase per capita spending of people in your center. Maybe you want to drive new audiences and new traffic that don't typically come in. Maybe you want to sell more birthday party packages and group packages. Maybe you want to increase food and beverage spending, right? There's a lot of different goals that you may have. And then when you're looking at those VR attractions, you will be considering what's the space allocation, how much space is it going to take up, what are the staffing requirements, what is my throughput and capacity, how many people can I move through the experience in an hour, and what is the price point that I'm going to be charging. And all of those factors work in tandem. And then the last thing to also think about is, what is your kind of technological savvy, right? When you look at something like a VR arcade game, those are going to be a lot easier to operate for someone that's maybe getting into VR for the first time and this is a new experience for them. It's a lot less involved than if you go something that's going to be the free roam, larger scale. There's more technology involved, and there's going to be more potential troubleshooting that may come down the line, or technological savvy that you and your staff would need to have in order to make sure that you're operating it in the best way possible and that you're creating a great experience for your guests. And so when I go down this path, I always start with those kinds of questions and get the operator thinking about what they're trying to accomplish.
So now, I mean, there's a ton of questions that anybody looking to get into this, this revenue stream would have to ask. I imagine the vendor is a great source of that information. I mean, and also to determine who's the best vendor for me. What are some of the most important questions to ask that vendor? Can you give us a sense? I mean, we don't know what you don't know. So what should we be asking them?
Sure. So some of the questions are going to be similar to what you may ask if it wasn't VR. So some of the pieces are going to be, how many units do you currently have in the field? If you happen to be based in the U.S., you may want to specifically ask about how many units do you have here in the United States. You want to ask for referrals that you can contact. You want to contact some of the operators that have this attraction to understand, how is it performing for them? What kind of prices are they charging? What's the revenue that they're seeing? Because sometimes what can happen is a vendor could throw out and give you numbers of like, oh yeah, it's been doing this amount, like this much revenue a month, or this kind of an ROI. But you don't know what kind of center that's in. You look at someone like Andretti Indoor Karting and Games, they're unbelievably successful, and they have, especially in their Orlando location, so much foot traffic that someone who is a BEC operator or a traditional bowling center, it's comparing apples to oranges. It's not the same. So you want to start understanding, what are the operators that are similar to me in size and traffic and scope, and what kind of numbers are they doing? How is it comparing to, and if it's an arcade attraction, how's it comparing to other arcade games that they have in their mix? You also want to understand when it comes to the support, right? We would love, as a vendor myself, we would love to make an absolute bulletproof game that never has any issues ever down the line. But we know that's not realistic, right? Every game, whether it's an arcade or anything bigger than that, there will be maintenance and there will be some issues that tend to come up, right? And you want to make sure that you've got someone who is available to support you. So you want to understand, what kind of support am I going to get? What are your support hours? Where is your support based? Is it internationally, or is it here in the United States? Understanding some of those will allow you to make sense of the vendors that are supplying these attractions, and make sense of what might make the right fit for your center.
Great questions, especially when you're talking about support, because that's one thing that we often forget. After the sale is made, are you going to be there for me? So a great point with that. So we've got time for one more question. I want to come back to what you mentioned before with attended attractions. So our industry is just the same as most places now. It's really tough to get help. Okay, so we're struggling getting staffing. Is there given that, what would drive me to even consider getting an attended attraction? Is there a profit-driven reason that I would consider that, having it, or am I better off just sticking with a non-attended attraction?
It's the revenue potential. That's really what it comes down to, right? When you look at the revenue potential of hybrid motion platform or free roam, it's significantly greater than your revenue potential with an arcade. Now, the arcade, the great part about that is you don't need to worry about staffing it. And as you mentioned, so many operators right now are thinking so heavily about staff. Like, what kind of attractions can I put in that don't require staff? And I like to take a step back because while that's important to consider that, we're also a people-driven industry. We're an experience industry, and your staff is a big part of that experience. If we just start adding attractions across the board that are only unstaffed, it completely eliminates some of the opportunities that we have to deliver a good experience. And so I always like to think about it from that way. It's not just a line item cost of like, I have to pay this employee to be at this attraction. It is investing in the revenue potential, right? And if you're at a point where you are unable, if you're considering something like a hybrid or motion platform and you're unable to staff it appropriately, I would tell you to wait then. Because what I've seen, I've been in different entertainment venues all across the country. And sometimes what will happen is on a hybrid VR attraction, there may be a sign in front of it that says, see us at the front counter to play. Right? The moment you do that, you completely limit your ability to earn on that attraction, right? Because now it is on, the onus is on the guest, and it creates the friction where they now have to go up to the desk and say, hey, I want to play this attraction. And you know what tends to happen is 99% of guests are just going to walk right by, because if it's not worth your time to staff it, it's not worth their time to play. So what I would say is if you're going to staff attractions or get an attraction, that requires staff, make sure you staff it appropriately, because it will always earn more than in a situation where you have an attraction that requires an employee and you don't have one stationed there. It will always earn more if you're stationing them the right way and finding the right kind of employee that's going to be very engaging with guests, answer questions, someone who's maybe really passionate about technology and VR and really wants to get people excited to play. That is really going to ramp up the ability to earn more on that.
So what I'm getting is know your goals, know your market, and if you are going to have a staffed attraction, make sure that it's part of the experience. Make sure you can deliver on that experience, because you're absolutely right. We're all about experiences. So great point. Thank you. Danny, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your input today.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
So as we wrap up another edition of the Bowling University Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, people will grow your business. We look forward to seeing you next time for another great episode. If you'd like more information on how immersive experiences like virtual reality can help grow your business, feel free to reach out to Danny directly. Don't forget, all previous Profit Break episodes are available 24/7 for you and your team to watch at bowlinguniversity.net. Plus, new Profit Break episodes are available every month, so mark your calendar, watch your email, and join us on Facebook to hear about the latest episodes. Until then, I'm John Karabatsis, and do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. So long, we'll see you next time.